Welcome to Indoctrination, a weekly conversation series about protecting yourself from systems of control. I'm your host, Rachel Bernstein. I am so happy to have Chris Buckley on the show today. He is someone who has a very powerful story. And, I'm sure that a lot of people would hear it as a brave story, and I think really illuminating about how the mind can be shifted one way or another, and what it takes to develop your own way of thinking about things separate from your community, separate from your family. It's not an easy thing to do. And sometimes it's a long time in coming. It sort of percolates. And I'm just really excited to hear about how that all happened for him. So, Chris, can you spend a moment introducing yourself to the people listening?
Yeah, sure. My name is Chris Buckley. I am a combat veteran and native of Ohio. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio in 1983. My parents were very young when they had me. My mom was 16 when she got pregnant. My dad was 18. And, my dad didn't really have any bearings on how to be a dad. I don't really feel like he ever really wanted to marry my mom either. That was more of a, you're going to do this because you did this type of thing from his parents. So, mom's pregnant, you're going to marry her. It's the right thing to do. Out pops me 9 months later. I grew up in Cleveland, like I said, in the mid 80s and 90s. It was really rough, man. There was a lot of segregation by like geographical area. So I mean, like, the west side of Cleveland was like predominantly white. The east side of Cleveland was predominantly black. And I still to this day, I can't really tell you why it was like that. It just happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
And my dad growing up was a very violent and, used a lot of drugs and alcohol, stayed gone when he wasn't at work. He wasn't at home either. So I didn't get to see my dad a lot. When I did, it was really violent. Like I got my whippings for the stuff that, he didn't catch me doing while he wasn't home for the week. And it's like, damn, man, like, I didn't do anything, but just to be safe, I still got my ass beat. So as a kid, I also dealt with a very close family member, some molestation issues for, like, when I say aggressive molestation, like, I know people are like really fucked up to talk about that. But like, it's a thing, I mean, and it can happen to boys and it can, yeah. So, I mean, like, I dealt with a lot of that, growing up, and it was like, you just don't talk about it, and the one time I did try to talk about it, I was like in a position to where, like, my dad, being the violent person that he is, was like, I'm going to go kill him and everybody in the house, and you can ride with me and watch what I do to people that hurt you. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to go, man. Like, I just want to sit here. I was like 10, 11. And my mom at that point made me, after my dad left, to go to the next room because he was going to get guns. He was going to take care of business. She made me go in there and tell my dad that I lied to him so that her brother didn't lose his life and he didn't end up in prison. So you can imagine the repercussions from that. Were bad.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you were caught in a corner.
Yeah.
Right. That's a rock and a hard place moment beyond a rock and a hard place. So many fears, I think, in all directions, but also having to be told that you needed to lie in order to kind of save somebody's life or to honor your mother and then get punished by your father. I'm just thinking about how head spinning.
Oh, look, so I can give you a clue as to like where my 10, 11-year-old brain was at. At that point, like I had already, like this started when I was like 5, right? The molestation did. I'm like 11 now. At this point in my life, like I don't give a shit about this guy's life. Like if I could take his life myself, I would, and I would love it. Right. Like I would be like in peace with myself. And I know people are like that's me talking now. Like, and I'm the most nonviolent person you'll ever meet. But like, if I could push the button or pull the switch, like, dude, let me do it.
Right.
Because I think about all the other kids in the family. I couldn't have been the only one. You know what I mean? And so that was like from like 6 and 7 on, like I had this deep-seated hatred for homosexuals. Like, because in my little child mind, everybody that was like him would do to me what he did. You know what I mean?
Right.
So on the same token, I hated my dad for being so violent to me. And I just wish that he would either like be my dad and love me or like disappear forever. And like this 10-year-old mind is like, fuck it, 2 birds with 1 stone, let him go. Right? Like I don't have to be in this situation no more. But like that was like really the moment in my life when I realized that my mom was not a mom.
Yeah.
Right? Like mom is there to protect you. Like my wife is super protective of my 9-year-old and my 6-year-old, but like her first words out of her mouth when somebody's messing with the kids are like, you better be glad I'm here and not their fucking father. Because like that's the only reason that I will ever resort to violence is over my kids or anybody's kids for that matter. Like I can be driving down the road and see somebody backhand a kid and I'm like, let me get out of the car real quick. You know, like, no, it's not happening.
To jump in here for a sec, I mean, I think, yes, as a mom myself, the most angry I've gotten in my life has been if someone has been mistreating my kids, even teachers who are just cruel. One of my kids who had a lot of social anxiety growing up and didn't want to have to get up in front of the class to give a report because he would have rather been hiding under his desk. And, you know, she berated him, called him a baby and told him that he, you know, I mean, called him a lot of things. There are some people who are going to push your buttons and for reasons because of, you know, they're messing with your pups. But I'm hearing these themes, right, that we're going to be revisiting, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Having a mom who wasn't acting like a mom, who didn't stand up for you, but instead put you in a situation where you were going to be put in.
She used me to protect herself.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, like I was a shield. I was a hostage shield. And that's really what I felt like growing up, man. I was mom's shield to, you know, it was her term, her method of self-preservation, right? Like she was a kid when she got pregnant. I don't really feel like she ever outgrew that childlike mentality. And like now I look back and people are like, is there a history of mental illness in your family? And I'm like, dude, my mom was so fucking developmentally challenged, bro. Like, yeah, there was. And I don't think it was ever diagnosed. But like, let's face it, like mental health, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. So much goes undiagnosed.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
It does. It does. And people also come into the role of parenting ill-equipped a lot of the time. But then, okay, so hatred for homosexuals because of this person who had done this to you, male, your mom using you as a shield, your dad being abusive, and probably then you wanting to look for some sort of father figure.
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. So like
up these very strong themes already. So go ahead.
And one of the things I want to add too is like my parents were like very like they were what I like to call closet racist, dude. Like in public, they were like super polite, like, hey, hold the door for that elderly woman. Right? Whether she was black, white, Hispanic, you know, male, you know, whatever. And at home, you know, I remember the first time I told my dad that I had a crush on a little Hispanic girl. Bro. When I say, like, I don't even feel comfortable, like, having the conversation, like, revisiting it because I'm ashamed for him.
Got it.
You know what I mean? It's like, you ever have somebody say or do something around you and you instantly become embarrassed because of them? And it's like, I had nothing to do with that. But, like, bro, you should be so embarrassed that I'm embarrassed because you're embarrassed.
Right. Because it was so extreme.
Yeah. Like a lot of derogatory language, negative remarks, slurs, My dad blamed everything on everybody else, right? He couldn't get a job because the Hispanics were coming in and working cheaper, right?
Mhm.
Mom couldn't get approved for welfare because the blacks were laying on the welfare system and wouldn't go to work and living in public housing, blah, 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 blah. And, all these rhetorics, these ideologies that I overhear my entire childhood growing up, even to this day, we'll talk more about it in the future, but when my dad found out I was in the Klan, he didn't give a shit. He was just like, oh, cool,
Right.
So my parents were very racist, and I got what we like to call indirect grooming. I would hear them talking, I would hear them, using these terms and acting this way. So growing up, it was very racist in my household. I never heard anybody called by their appropriate terminology, right? It was always these slurs. So yeah. And I started looking towards other people to help me, figure out how to be a man.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to be able to, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the story once you get into the kind of the chronology of what happened when you got involved in the Klan. Just bringing up two things that you've already brought up. One, this idea that your dad was blaming everyone else for everything. That happens so often when there is this sort of just general hatred of, this idea that people are to blame for either your failings or opportunities that you missed out on. But that as opposed to looking inward, you point your finger outward. And that's, for some people, that's really automatic.
Yeah.
And then you don't grow, you don't learn, you don't figure out really anything. You just add more people to hate, it seems.
Exactly. And one of the things that I teach my son and daughter nowadays is I don't ever want to see them point their finger at somebody, because when you point your finger, there's three more pointing right back at you.
Right.
So, when we talk to each other, even me and my son, we'll get into these massive dad-son arguments, heated debates, and we knife edge each other when we talk to each other.
Uh-huh.
So we're pointing all the fingers at each other, especially on the baseball field. I'll be like, how could you miss that? And he'll be like, it was way over my head. And I'll be like, no, it wasn't. It's hilarious. So
right.
I start finding these inappropriate male role models, right? I'm trying to figure out who I am. I remember at one point it was NWA, the rap group from the night, horrible fucking role models for kids. They were singing about killing cops, fuck the police. But my brain couldn't comprehend what they were going through and singing about. Right? This is me immersing myself in some other culture that I don't understand. I was white.
Right.
I didn't grow up with police brutality. I didn't grow up with the hardships and the struggles that the black community did. But here I am immersing myself in this culture, looking up to the drug dealers in the neighborhood, really bad role models. And I remember it turned to where I was smoking weed and I was drinking and I was in junior high.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, it just progressed at that point.
Yeah. And so also this other thing that you said about being indirectly groomed, that's a fascinating thing. There are comments that people make under their breath, kind of, and actions. For example, I think about this growing up. And sometimes it's very subtle, but it accumulates. It forms the way you think about things. I remember driving through a certain neighborhood that I had driven through many times. It was heavily Hispanic. It's not far from where I grew up, where they did a lot of, I remember their car racing with cars that would bounce,
Yeah, lowriders, man.
Lowriders. And I love that song. It's actually one of my favorite songs, Lowrider. Yep. But I remember just driving through that neighborhood because whatever, it was near my house. And then driving one time with someone who, I think a grandparent who was visiting from out of state. And she said, lock your doors. And I thought, lock my door.
Yeah.
What? Why do I have to lock my door? But it was this automatic message. And she could see people who were, who scared her, I guess. And suddenly there was this idea that you're unsafe.
Yep.
And so I think even in those little messages, like lock your doors, you get over and over again, right? You get the messages. So I'm just, as you think back on it, before we move forward, but as you think back on it, how were you indirectly groomed? Of course, with you having a crush on this Hispanic girl.
Well, I mean, like, to hear my dad blame everybody else and every other race and demographic for his shortcomings and failures, like you said, as a kid, you don't look at your parents and be like, no, it's your fault. Now as a 38-year-old man who has lived an adult life for quite some time now, I realized that dad couldn't hold a job down because he was a fucking drug addict. You know what I mean? Like, dad couldn't pass P tests at work. Dad got let go a lot, right? Dad missed a lot of work because he was laid up drunk, hungover. Dad, it was hard for dad to hold a job down, but it wasn't because of anybody else. It was because of dad, right? So but growing up, you get these confirmation biases implanted. So when you see something, right, like you see the Hispanic lady in front of you when you're there because me and my wife have had hard times, right? And we went to file for assistance, for food assistance. And you get there and you see the Hispanic lady with her kids there in front of you, and it's guess dad was right. You know what I mean? And you're so blinded. And the more you do these little things, the more you become so numb to what you're actually doing. And you create what we call, in the former world, we call it a cognitive opening, right? It's a mental weakness or deficiency or lack of something that you would otherwise normally have that creates a space for this ideology to become embraced, or at least, entertained.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's the same with any ideology. All ideologies are drugs of choice, right? So whereas one man might prefer heroin, another man prefers cocaine. It's both drugs, they both do the same horrible things to your body. Most of them have the same gateways, but it's different drugs. That's what extremist is. It's a drug of choice.
I love that because it says so much, and you're right, because it connects, I think, with the same parts of the brain. It fires
really
up.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah, the fact that you brought that up, it gives validity to everything that I'm doing in my life right now. So thank you for that. But yeah, so it does. It really triggers the endorphins and the dopamines and the adrenaline, the adrenal glands.
Wow. Okay, that's so powerful. So then moving forward.
Moving forward, my dad just shows up and he's out of the blue. I'm in high school. I just started high school in Cleveland, Ohio still. And my dad had been living in the southern part of the state, working during the week, coming home on the weekends. One weekend he shows up just like any other, but he pulls in with a U-Haul and he's like, you guys got 2 days. I'm leaving Sunday afternoon. Get everything you're taking with you in this U-Haul. We're moving together. I'm getting him out of here. He's going to end up on drugs, dead, or in prison. It's looking back on in hindsight, there's not a whole lot of things that I can be like, damn, Dad, thanks, bro. You really, you got that one right. Right? But that's one of them. So we moved to Southern Ohio, and everybody else was exactly like me, white, rural, country as hell. I learned how to hunt and fish in high school. And I haven't looked back. My parents had a new baby during this time, my little sister, and that was the one that was going to save their marriage. But Dad just pushed me to the side. Total disgusting ass fucking human beings. I'm sorry about my language, but it just comes out, right? The whole time growing up, I realize it now, what I experienced with my dad wasn't hate, it was resentment. I haven't spoke to my parents in years, not even a phone call. but like they might be together somewhere in their misery. I'm assuming they probably still are.
So I'm so sorry about that, about, having someone also new in your family where you feel that you're kind of the second thought or third or fourth really
Yeah,
down
and
the
you know
line.
what? It's cool because like now I know exactly how not to be a dad. So thanks again, Dad. You really nailed that one. Like now I have what we talked about before. I kind of have a guidebook. It's not like a direct manual, but it's like hey, if faced with this choice, don't do it. I don't know what you should do, but don't do this because this is what I did.
Right.
So I mean, I find the silver lining in things.
I'm glad, and it's actually true, because a lot of people will learn how to do things by making sure that they do it the opposite of how it was done to them, or how they've seen it in other family systems where they think, "Oh God help me if I ever do that." Right. Okay. So, all right. So here you're looking for these role models,
Yep.
and is that something that started in high school, or was that after?
I think I've really been doing that my whole life. Really, I've been looking for because I never got to like evolve into me. I was always either like I always had this other agenda to my life. Like it was hide from uncle, we'll leave his name out. It was keep out of dad's way. It was, just try to exist as peacefully as possible. And I never really got to experience childhood, man. Like I was taking care of my dad when he's drunk, and like trying to find that fine line between like getting my ass kicked because I'm trying to like clean a cut on his eye up because he was out at the bar fighting and the cops brought him home, or let him lay there and then like he wake up the next morning pissed off. Whose house can I stay at tonight so that I don't have to be here when he wakes up? You know what I mean? So like, yeah, it's like I always look for somebody that I could be like, that's who I want to be like. That guy has like a really nice car and a lot of money. Just so happened that guy's the dope guy in the neighborhood. Or, like I always found the worst role models. Like, and I don't know if I was just drawn to them or like what kind of cognitive opening I had to be able to embrace like what I knew was wrong. Like I knew it the whole time, but like it was appealing for some reason, all these negative role models. And I don't know why, man. I just think that it was.
I mean, I think I wonder if it was, when I think about the dealer who you were looking up to and wanting his life, maybe it's just because it seemed to you from the outside that his life was easier.
Oh yeah. I think that was it. He had anything he wanted. He always had money, nice things. And like I can't remember the first brand new pair of shoes I ever got. I think I bought them my damn self, really. Like that's the kind, like I lived in like poor conditions, like slumlord landlords that like you had a hole in the ceiling that you could literally like talk to the upstairs neighbor through the hole in the ceiling. It was like those kind of conditions, right? So like I always wanted more. Yeah. I was always really hungry to do better. And like I found my role model in high school, and I found it in the form of a US Army recruiter. It was everything that I wanted to be. He was strong, muscular. He had all the medals on his wrist. He had on his chest. He had the bravery. Everybody looked up to him, and I was like, "That's what I need to do with my life. Like, if I could be anything, that's what I want to be." So I took the ASVAB test. I joined the Army, and I spent 13 years in the Army. It was the most amazing thing I never want to do again in my life. Kind of like skydiving and your chute doesn't open until the last minute. And then you're like, oh, thank God I made it out. I'm okay. I'm never doing that again. But it was so fun. Right?
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Like it's scary until it's over. And then you look back and you're like, that was fun. Like that was living in like the wilderness for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time with just a sleeping bag and like bare essentials. Like I learned a lot about who I was. What I was capable of, what I was able to achieve when I put my mind to it. And I had to learn how to be an adult really quick because I joined at 17.
Okay.
So I did the delayed entry program, and like I got on that bus to leave and go to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri at a 17-year-old kid who was like, "Oh, I hope there's girls," right? And then I get there and I was like, I am in the wrong place. and I grew up overnight. And everybody did, really. And I found this amazing camaraderie where, like, we were all just trying to make it out alive and get through it. And then I realized what the real military was like outside of the training situation. And like, I really fell into my element. Like, I always wanted to help people. Like, I was always somebody that would, like, go out of my way to help somebody because I enjoyed it. And then combat happened.
Oh, combat. Okay.
That other big looming elephant that happens when you join the military, right?
Right. That's right.
So I was deployed. Like, before I go into that, like, I met a really close friend of mine, was an amazing human being. We met in Reception Battalion when we first joined the Army. Went through every training station, all our duty stations. We always ended up together. Like, me and Daniel were like, they called us frickin' frack. I don't even know what that means because it's older than me.
It's right. Exactly. Yeah.
But it's cool because, like, they knew that we were really close. First two duties, like, overseas deployments, gravy, dude. We never even really seen any combat. It was just escorting back and forth. We looked for IEDs. We found a bunch, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, like, and we always had a joke. Like, we found them all one way or another. Either they blew up on us or we found them and got them out of the road.
And where was this that you were finding?
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
Yeah. All three tours were in, like, Oregon E, which is like 9 miles south of the Pakistani border. Just close enough for Pakistan to lop rockets at us every day and blame it on the Taliban. But so on October 31st of 2008, we were joking around in a vehicle. He's like, commander comes over and he's like, hey, the vehicle behind us is our load vehicle. It had supplies, ammo, all kinds of stuff for the FOB that we were taking it to. Right. And we were just escorting. And I smoked cigarettes. I had been 3 hours without a cigarette. I can't smoke. I've got all this ammo in my truck. One spark, one, boom. Everybody's messed up. He chewed tobacco. Now, we both had to pee. There were plenty of empty Gatorade bottles laying around. We did it all the time. And so I was like, bro, I'm going to get out and check that load. I'll ratchet them binders down and hit the links. Make sure we pull another chain link in, keep it from swaying. And that way I could smoke a cigarette while I'm out there. He's like, nah, bro, I've got to stretch my legs. I'm laying here. I'm melting. I need some air. Get up in the gunner's house. We had this whole ass conversation, right? Back door pops open. We wrestle, struggling to get to the back door. He hops out before me. And he's like, ha ha, and falls. And I was like, that's what you get, motherfucker, for laughing at me. And I look out the window, still laughing. No helmet, got my body armor on, and I'm laughing at him. And I noticed that, like, he took the first round of a bullet over his left eye, and it came out the back of his head. And this was like everything in me. I lost everything. I had no military bearing, left my rifle in the truck. I'm outside in an active trooping contact, bullets flying, and I'm trying to drag him up into the back of this MRAP while holding this, like, clay-y, like, mud substance with, like, bone fragment, like, trying to push it into the back of his head, right?
No.
The whole time I'm experiencing what postmortem reflexes are for the first time ever, right? It looked like he was trying to yawn. The good eye was still kind of looking around slowly, and it would roll up, and I'm talking to it. Like, fuck, man, see what you did? See? And I'm shoving stuff, and I'm holding, and, like, the whole time I knew, but I didn't want to know. Exactly. And I remember the first thing I remember after that, I don't remember anything until we're driving down a route, getting out of our kill zone, which we call it, and the headset, the assistant vehicle commander's like, Buckley, put your fucking headset on. You've got a full bird colonel on the line, and he wants to talk to you directly. Put the headset on. He's like, you will stop that convoy. You will place that soldier on a medevac bird, and you will send him to base. And, like, I remember, like, I've always been the most respectful soldier. I did my duties. I followed my orders. I didn't like them, but I did them. And I was so just shattered. I said, fuck you, sir. He started this mission with us. He will fucking end it with us. And I threw the headset back. I remember we had 3 miles to go to base. We were 3 miles outside our gate. Once the trauma settled of what had initially happened, and I had time to like think about what was happening, like I hated anything that had anything to do with Islam. That was my cognitive opening. That moment in my life was the beginning of allowing in the anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic, Islamophobic rhetoric and ideology, and it was my buy-in, right? So that was a really important time.
Oh, I am so sorry to hear about that. I mean, just that moment that you portray where you're talking to him and still joking around and laughing, just thinking everything.
Like, and it happened so fast. Like you don't say, like, it looked like he just lost his footing and went down, and like you look out and the dude's got a hole in his head and everything's laying on the ground, and it's like, how the fuck do I fix this? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
I'm so sorry to hear about your friend.
It's okay. It's part of my story.
But it is part of your story. It's part of your heart in this story. Yeah. Okay, but you're right. So, I mean, here you had been raised with this idea, and I don't know if you even need to be raised with it for something like that to happen in that moment, but being raised with this idea of being, it's almost like generalized thinking, like all fill in the blank are like this. And now all of this group are the enemy, as opposed to just the guy who was shooting the rifle.
It's the us versus them mentality that every ideology and every extremist view need. It's always us versus them. Like, you're either a white supremacist now or you're Antifa. There's no middle ground. Like, exactly. It's us versus them. Yeah. And when you put people in a position to where they have to make a choice, you don't really get to bitch about the choice they make. Right? Kind of like when somebody says, hey, that offended me and it hurt my feelings.
Right.
I learned that when somebody tells you that you've hurt their feelings or somebody says that offended them, you don't really have the right to tell them they're not.
Yeah.
You know?
True.
So, yeah. And then, I come home and I'm harboring this hatred towards Islam, towards anything Muslim. I actually took part in like this stuff that you've seen over like on the news about like peeing on and burning Qurans overseas. Like, had every bit of involvement with stuff like that any chance I got. I remember I come home and I decided I was going to transfer to Guard. The National Guard doesn't get deployed. They're always home. They're always doing stuff. 2 months after I transferred to a National Guard unit, I got deployed to a state active duty mission, which was a natural disaster in Jackson, Kentucky. On the way back from that accident, I was involved in a very serious Humvee accident. The back axle snapped. I flipped it once end over end and 7 barrel rolls down the highway. Broke my back, suffered severe head trauma, and that was my introduction to opiate painkillers. So now I've had a cognitive opening. I've started a regimen of addictive substances, opiates. I was on 2 Roxycontin 30s every day for 3 months. And then out of the blue, the doctor's like, yeah, we're not going to give you no more refills. These are only refills you get. Right? And I was at the point where I was sitting in a bed for 3 months. I couldn't bath myself. I had to be helped to a tub. Somebody had to take care of me because like I could have severed the spinal cord. It was that bad of a break. I would literally fall asleep with a little pocket in my shirt like this, right? And I would pour about 8 of those pills in there, and I would munch them until I would nod out. When I woke up, I would start munching again.
Right.
And I would just nod back out. And that's how I got through that 3 months before I was able to walk on a walker and use a cane. Like, it was 2 years of recovery.
Unbelievable. But also to be taken off just cold turkey like that. I mean, it's so not only irresponsible, but it is so dangerous to do to somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's why I started to seek and buy them on the streets.
Yeah.
So like that point, like, so there's 2 main points to my story. Like there was the initial hatred that I experienced early in childhood with the molestation, right? Then there was the cognitive opening in the military to have the hate come up from the molestation and be met with the anti-Islamic hate. Right.
Yeah.
And then there was the impaired mental ability to like use that moral cognitive approach to be able to combat that.
Mhm.
So like I had all the ingredients and it was time to bake some cupcakes, right?
It was time to bake some seriously disturbing cupcakes, right?
Right.
So, all right. So then let's move on to you in the kitchen, so to speak. Baking.
Yeah.
What happened next?
I remember the pain pills slowly evolved and like turned into more hardcore and elusive drugs. Eventually ended up to where I was using probably 3.5 to 4 grams of methamphetamine every 2 days. Yeah. They called me Speed Flash, right? Like I was here and gone, boom. I weighed 110 pounds.
Oh no.
I was very sick, very sick. And I remember one of the guys I was buying dope off of was a black guy, and like we were always cool, but like we weren't that cool, right? Like I didn't have any like my racism stuff didn't really start until like I got into the Klan. But I remember he was telling me about this white chick that he knew that would do anything in the world, like you just name it, like and like she gets paid for this stuff. And he was just throwing her a sack of dope here and there. And I was like, damn, cool story, bro. Like, where's my dope? Like, I need that. Here's money. Like, I don't want to hear about your sexcapades. So I got home from work one night, which was something that I was vaguely able to do, was hold down a job and be a junkie. And there he was at my house with my wife's sister. That was the girl. And I was like, bro, no. We fell out immediately. He got kicked out of the house. She got kicked out of the house. And I got right on my little computer there and I Googled, how can I protect the white race? Right? I was mad. I was hurt. I was angry. And then I got involved. I found a feller by the name of Roy Denburton on the Loyal White Knight of the Ku Klux Klan's webpage. And he reached out to me, invited me to a cookout. We smoked some dope. Didn't eat. I don't know why we even cooked food, really, because we just smoked our backs out and got high as giraffe balls. And like stayed up for 3 days smoking meth. And he invited me to join the group. And I was like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Most of it was like mystery. Like it's the KKK. Like there's all these there's as much mystery that surrounds the KKK as there are the Freemasons.
Interesting. So what kind of mystery?
Like just the rituals that they perform. They're very secretive. Like, you want to know what they know. And like the Freemasons is more of like a knowledge base. And like we all know are, with the Freemasons, like there's the rumors that when you get up into like the 33rd and stuff like that. But, with the Klan, it was more like you just wanted to like, I just wanted to know about like the history of it. You know what I mean? It was super secretive. And it was the taboo of it being forbidden that I was like, what? Hold my fucking beer. Like, right?
Amen.
So at the same time was I joined, like you hear people say that Trump created the white supremacy problem. Like, no, dude, I joined under Obama. Right? I voted for Obama while I was in the military.
Interesting.
And then I joined the KKK under Obama when he got reelected. Right? Like during that time, he got reelected while I was in the KKK. Right?
Okay. And when you voted for him initially, what was that about?
It was better than who was in there.
Got it.
In my opinion. You know what I mean? I was like, hey, I get to be part of history. I get to like help elect the first black president in history. Like that's part of my history now. I did that. You know what I mean? Like that was my vote, and he won by a landslide. But damn it, if my vote wasn't there, right?
Right. Okay. Right. And that reminds me actually of a question, and I will remember where you are in the story because this is where I really want you to be able to talk more about your experiences in the KKK. But I was also wondering, just quickly, when you were talking about joining the army. So here you were kind of, you're sharing barracks. You're in spaces with people from all over and all probably races, nationalities. What was that like for you?
Didn't bother me a bit.
Interesting.
It had zero effect on me. Those were my brothers. I loved them.
Got it. Okay. Which is so interesting because that says so much about who you naturally are.
Right.
Okay.
Like the weirdest part about it for me, like, and I'm just gonna be truthfully like blunt ass obvious, was shower time. I could not stand to be around that many naked men, and like the stuff that happened while I was like a kid, like that still bothers me today.
Yes. Understood. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah.
Okay. Right. Not that anything happened to you while you were in the army, but yes, it's going to
No,
bring
not at all. But it was just like it was a reminder. Like I wanted to be as far away from any other naked man as I could.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was due to that. Like it didn't seem to bother anybody else. Like I was severely homophobic in the military.
Mhm.
Like severely. Like I would shower with shorts on, like PT shorts.
Mhm.
I had my shower shorts. Like, and I would wash them every time I washed laundry, but they got hung up to dry.
Mhm.
And like I didn't shower naked. And I like implored everybody else to like put the fucking shorts on. You know what I mean? Like seriously. I mean, but it was just my own uncomfortable because of the problem.
Yeah, understood. I completely understand. Okay. All right. So now here you spend all these 3 days, it seems sleepless.
Oh yeah, sleepless. And like, you know, I remember he was like, I got some friends coming over, you're gonna love them.
Mhm.
And you know, it was a dude and his wife and kids, another guy and his wife and kids, and the kids all played. The wives were like super, and I was like, damn, I miss my dudes, man. Like I miss my army guys. Like we used to do this shit. Like our kids would play, our wives would play, we would do shit, we would drink, we would play video, we would do everything together, and they were gone.
Mm.
And I realized just how much of an emptiness I had. So I rushed home and I'm like, Melissa, like you've got to come and meet these guys, man. They're so cool, they're so awesome. My wife, being of sober mind and 100% fucking against this, is like, yeah, I'm not going to a KKK rally. I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
You do you, boo. You know?
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, and it just like I just got immersed in this hate, and it was a place where I could do all the drugs I wanted. I never have to pay for shit because hey, I'm a full patch member now, right? And on top of that, like it was a place that they grew and they nurtured and they cultivated the hate.
Mhm. Okay. So how did they do that?
I mean, they buy into everything that you're upset about, and they confirm it for you. They find ways to prove to you that the reason you're upset, you need to be even more upset about. Like, don't just be pissed off. Like, do something about it. Let's go let's go throw a brick through somebody's fucking window. Let's go find some gay people and beat the shit out of them. Let's burn a cross at a church, you know? And it's like, this is the shit that like we were involved with, you know? And
Right. So I wonder about those things. I mean, first of all, the things that you were involved in that you're thinking back on, you know, and probably having some thoughts about what you did. A lot of people have that. A lot of people think like, you know, how is it that I was able to get wound up to that point where I participated in something now that I would never do? And I think, but also something you said is so fascinating about how, you know, cultivating this hate, nurturing it, that they would take kind of examples, I guess, and have you be mad at a particular group of people based on that, and then want you to be even more mad about it. But I think probably a lot of those things that were presented to you were not necessarily facts, you know?
no, it was facts as they wanted them to be interpreted.
Okay. I don't know how much you're comfortable sharing about the things that you did or the people around you did.
Look, so we would drive around at night. What we did, we called them night rides. Like you hear the KKK in today's terms talk about night rides, and they just say they're out dropping flyers. That's not what they're doing, man. They're out targeting, actively seeking victims, right? Interracial couples, you get out and beat the shit out of the dude. If you have females with you, your females will take care of the girl because men don't hit women. Like weird how they have some sort of chivalry in this chaotic lifestyle, right? But it's there. Homosexuals beat the shit out of both of them, right? If somebody you knows somebody, like cop and burn a cross right in their yard, and we got away from doing that because of the hate crime laws. But it was still nothing to throw a mask on and attack somebody.
Wow.
And like, yeah, so I mean, eventually my military training led me like very high up into the ranks. I eventually become the second in command for the entire United States for the LWK.
Right. What was you had a certain specific title also, right?
I was an Imperial Nighthawk.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And that's like the head of security for the entire, you're second only to the Imperial Wizard.
Mm.
And then, this just goes on, this crazy, exhausting, out of control, chaotic. I mean, there's not enough words to go in to describe like what kind of life I was living. Drug fueled would definitely remain at the top of the list somewhere. But I remember that it started getting dangerous. People started to know who I was and what I was doing.
Oh.
My wife and my kids were becoming targets in public. I remember that she had one black girl that I'm almost attempted, like she swerved up onto the sidewalk to run her over. Oh. It was dangerous at that point. And at this point too, I was already so exhausted. Like I was mainly like, people say, hey, I'm just here for the free chips. Like I was just there for the free meth. Like that's all these organizations are like drug and alcohol fests.
Wow. I think people have no idea about that part. I had no idea about that part.
Yeah. So I mean, like when you're involved in these organizations, you're trading drugs from one group to the other, selling here to make there. You're involved in a lot of criminal activities. You're basically an organized crime unit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the same thing. Anything you can have your hands in, you're in. You're working with motorcycle gangs on meth. You're selling, heroin to, this gang over here. You're buying, ecstasy and shit from these guys over here. It's this constant cycle of drugs and violence.
And I'm wondering also about the people who were involved. Were there people who were high up in the community?
So I know of a few guys who were elementary school teachers.
Oh. Mm.
They were elementary school teachers. I know of a cop that asked me if he could become a member, and I was like, we have a zero law enforcement policy. Like, I don't care if you worked for a police station, if you are a cop, like there was a zero police. Everybody's the feds. You're super like sketched out about everybody.
Okay.
One guy in another state was a probate judge.
Wow. A judge?
Judge.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I hear rumors that there was a very prominent judge in the North Georgia area, very prominent judge, who had very strong ties, not a full patch member, but what they called a supporter of the KKK.
I'm wondering also with, when you're talking, I think it's so insightful that you see these turning points where you kept getting turned towards something like this. Was that the case also with the people you met there, that they had these events happening in their lives? Or
so like we all had this experience that anybody involved in an extremist group is going to have an experience, and it's going to be one of two experiences. One, you're going to end up dead or in prison. Or two, you're going to have a moment of clarity where you realize this is all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that moment, then you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Then the real work can start of getting out. And I liken it to like for every 1 hour you spend like being involved in a group, you're going to spend 10 hours trying to get away from the group.
Okay. So let's talk about you getting out. How long were you in, by the way?
I got in 2013. I stayed all the way until like early 2016.
What was that kind of epiphany? What was that moment like where you thought, okay, I'm out?
So my wife reached out to Arno Michaelis, who is another former neo-Nazi white nationalist. She thought about reverse engineering how I got in. She was like, well, if he can Google how to get to protect the white race, maybe I can Google how to get a loved one out of a hate group. Arno Michaelis popped up and the work that he was doing with a group called Serve to Unite and Parents for Peace. So she reached out to him, and she never expected to hear back. He's like this celebrity now, right? And like the next day, there was an email, and he was like, "How bad is he? We need to get to him now," and free of charge. Jumped on a plane, flew from Milwaukee all the way to Georgia, and spent a week with me.
And during that week, what happened?
So the first thing he said, I remember breaking down. It was violent at first, like I was very hostile and aggressive, because there was another person here now confronting this ideology that I had embraced.
Right.
So, I mean, Arno's like 6'4", 6'5", like 250. He's a huge, massive man. And I'm 5'8", 110 pounds wet because I'm so strung out on dope. But so we go back and forth. I remember Arno wasn't like critical of my ideology as much as he was. The first words out of his mouth was, "We've got to get you sober." That was something I could get behind, right? I seen what my addiction was doing to my family, what it was doing to the people I loved. And I wanted that shred of who I used to be back, right? So we start working on sobriety. And like that was a long, drawn out process. And then the work on the ideology come in.
Okay.
We started to confront these ideas that I had, these confirmation bias that I have in my mind. I know I say that word a lot, but that's really what ideology hinges on.
Yep.
So I remember one of the crazy ideas that I had was that it was only white people that were suffering in the homeless pandemic, right? So he puts me on a plane. We fly to LA and we volunteer to serve food to the homeless people at the Midnight Mission. We also visited Homeboy Industries, where I got to meet Father Greg Boyle, Hector Verrugo.
Wow.
Yeah. But I remember Hector pulled me to the side and he asked Arno, he was like, "Hey, man, like, give me and Chris a minute," in his office. And I remember looking at somebody that I claimed to hate, and just like I can close my eyes today and still see how compassionate his big brown eyes are. And he was like, "What is it that you want from all of this? Like, from this journey you're on, what is it that you hope to find?" And I remember I broke down in tears, and I let so much tears and pain, and so, like, I ruined his desk with snot and tears. His shirt, like, I mean, like, it's snot and tears. And I remember the only word I could mutter was, "I wanted peace." Right? So onward with my journey, I continue my transition out. Me and Arno were talking one day, and I was like, "Dude, I've got to do what you do. Like, you helped me, and I have to do this for other people. Like, who better than me? What better time than now?" And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how. Arno was like, "You've got to find your way." Right?
Okay.
Like,
That's hard, though.
You can't do it my way. You've got to do it Chris's way.
Okay.
Completely stumped. Like, I was just in this rut. I was empty. I had nothing. Everything that I had lived my entire life for the last 3 years was gone. It was a lie. Like, I had no identity. And he introduced me to Dr. Heval Kelli out of Atlanta. At the time, Dr. Kelli was a fellow at Emory University. Right? We started doing some speaking gigs about how two people from unlikely backgrounds could come together and have a genuine organic bond. And so I remember we were coming back from University of North Carolina, and we did a speaking engagement there on Chapel Hill. And I looked at him, and I'd had a few drinks, right? We went to dinner afterwards, a dinner party at a professor's house. And I was slightly buzzed, but like not drunk. And I was like, "How do I do it?" And he was like, "How do you do what, man?" I was like, "How do I find my way?" He said, "That's easy." He said, "Take what you know and use it to change the world." I was like, "All I know how to do is be a drug addict." And he was like, "Then use that." And I was like, "But I mean, like, there's all these things out there for drug addicts. There's not all these things out there for people in extremist groups."
Interesting.
And as a doctor, I asked him, I was like, I wonder if it was possible for me to be addicted to the hate, the euphoria, the adrenaline, the feelings that I would get that were similar to the highs of amphetamines or, inebriations that I would get there, the chemical releases and reactions in my brain, if it's possible. And he was like, bro, how do you not have a college degree? And I was like, because I got lost on the way to college and found meth instead. Right.
Right.
But
yeah,
I remember it took like a few days, man. And I sat down and I really just started to dissect what I did to get sober. And I used that idea, if I can do this to get sober from substances, and if the theory is that we can be addicted to an emotion or a feeling the same way we can be addicted to a substance, can we use the same treatment methods, like a moral cognitive type of approach, to address those things? That just started a snowball. I started to research. I started to come up with like common threats or red flags that lead people to addiction, that also lead them into extremism. And the results were almost mirrored.
yeah. It is astounding because you can sometimes see it. I see it also when I work with people who are involved in conspiratorial thinking. They're so wound up that I've told people that sometimes it's hard because they can't even sit in a chair having the conversation. They're pacing, they're in your face, it's like they're on.
Because they believe it.
Mhm.
It's real to them. And one of the things that when we're working in this field, we have to keep in mind, it's like the golden rule: perception is reality. Your perception is key, right? And I can't remember what smart person said that a long time ago, but I want to give them the adequate credit. But like, we're just in a conversation, I can't think of it. But perception is key. What you perceive to be is what is.
Right.
So when you're talking to somebody who perceives things away, you have to respond with unconditional compassion.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we've really roped into this program is the 3 threat factors that I call them. There's more, but the 3 things, think of a tripod, how sturdy a pyramid is, right? Like it's a
Right.
trot,
Mhm.
right? A pyramid 4, but we'll take the 4th wall of that pyramid can be the others,
Okay.
right? The X factors. But the 3 main sides of that are: 1, mental health, right? So many people that I work with are on the spectrum after the fact. And we don't realize until after. They're not diagnosed. There's misdiagnosis.
Okay.
The second thing is trauma.
Mhm.
Previous traumas in life, such as the traumas that I had experienced,
Okay.
and many others that I didn't experience that others experienced. And the third is the substance abuse aspect of it.
Mhm.
So it's like a spider web. Like if you cut one of the limbs of a spider web, it's going to weaken,
Mhm.
the web falls, and the spider has to build a whole new web. And it usually relocates to a different place, somewhere more conducive to a rebuild.
It is so much about perception. It's about how things are defined. And again, also whose fault it is, et cetera, that takes you down that path. But I think
Yeah.
just as we finish up, I'm so moved by how moved you were in that moment when you're talking about Hector and seeing that compassion in his eyes. Because it makes me think about all the years in your life early on. It doesn't sound like there was compassion, that there wasn't that kind of warmth that you saw in people's eyes directed at you. And that so many people, I think, are looking for that connection, and really what they were kind of needing was love and compassion along the way. So it wasn't so easy to become, I think, hateful and militaristic and devoid of compassion.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the first place I really found my passion was the military, and how hard and arduous that profession is. And then you see it with groups like Q and the 3%ers and things like that. That they come out of the military and they're vulnerable, and they create the fight that they have to fight so that they feel that value, they feel that purpose, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. So just thank you. As we finish up, how can people, I mean, I don't know if you want people to be in touch with you or to even just, pay you to come and speak or to whatever, how can people be in touch with you about that?
Well, they could reach out to me directly. I'm no stranger to sharing my info. I'm on Facebook. Also, they could, if they have a loved one or somebody that is, that they're worried about becoming involved in extremism, they can reach directly out to Parents for Peace, and their website's www.parents4peace.org.
Wonderful. Good. You're great. You're great. I know there's so much more to the story, so many more details, but the themes are really what I think are so telling along the way, and what makes something a turning point away from really who you are and then back to who you are. I'm fascinated by that journey.
The cool thing about it is, we see things from the outside and we see these people on TV, and it's so easy to judge them and to form these thoughts and these realities around what you're seeing, that you don't get to see that person that's inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of scholars are saying, like, these people are lost causes, but I am these people. I'm these people and what they have the potential to become. And that's why my work is so important to me, is I'm not just pulling people out of a movement. I'm giving people back a father, a son, a mother, a loved one. I'm giving that back. And that is the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
It's a beautiful thing. We can't put a price on that. That's an incredible gift. And to use your experience for that, I respect that a lot. I respect you a lot. And I really thank you for your time. Thank you very much for listening. Please support Indoctrination on Patreon at patreon.com/indoctrination. Be sure to give us a follow on our social media. Find us on Facebook and Instagram using @indoctrination podcast. And for Twitter, find us at @_indoctrination. We love hearing from you too. So send us an email at indoctrinationshow@gmail.com. And for more updates on the show, visit our website at www.podpage.com/indoctrination.